Hi everyone, welcome to the Casual Watch Talk Sunday Social. Big welcome to the panel. Should we kick it off with a wristwatch check? Mark, you're in the hot seat. What are you wearing?
I am wearing my Omega Seamaster Regatta chronograph.
Oh, excellent, cool. Dave, what are you wearing?
I am wearing my Grand Seiko SPG W289 36mm Cherry Blossom, which is a really great size, especially in the 44 GS case, which is a bit of a monster because it is a very long lug to lug on the 40mm, but this 36mm comes in pretty nice on my wrist.
Yeah, it does look nice. Yeah, really nice. Pete, what are you wearing?
I am not quite wearing Brightwing Avenger Night Mission GMT.
Oh, beautiful.
Very nice.
So,
yeah, I like those. Todd, what are you wearing?
I am wearing, I don't know the reference number for this. It's a really funky, cool Seiko I picked up a couple of years ago. That's a perpetual calendar and chronograph dress watch all in one. Really fun little piece that I kind of stumbled upon one time.
Oh,
I'm guessing quartz.
It is quartz, but also sapphire crystal, which I was shocked when I got it in the mail. I was like, how did this watch for under $200? I mean, it was
somebody modded it.
No, I got it from Amazon.
Okay.
Isn't the rule that makes it a fake Seiko?
I thought so.
Probably. Yeah.
Did everything line up as well?
I was blown away when I got it. I opened the box and there was like that little sapphire crystal sticker on it. And I was like, are you kidding? But here we are.
And then I will finish off with the Bremon. It's still going strong. It's got this. I like it. It's got the bracelet. So, or metal strap, as Mark likes to call it, is so thick on this.
Someone's going to pay for that.
Okay, so hopefully we're going to need a lot of input from everyone in the chat today, but I have been noticing over the last couple of weeks that, or longer than that, I think last couple of months, the prevalence of watch YouTubers just doing a lot of top 10 lists, either filtering it into their own content or certain bigger channels that seem to have made it their entire content strategy just to do endless top 10 lists. Now, I was always a little bit resistant to doing them, but I found out from another YouTuber that it's actually helped his channel quite a lot. So maybe you'll start seeing more from me in future. But the question is this a good thing that we're now, your favorite YouTuber is now putting out a large number of top 10 lists? Do they help? Do they help you make a decision about watches, or is it just distracting from making more in-depth, sophisticated content? I guess is the question. But yeah, I mean, anybody got an answer to that? It kind of was an open-ended question there, wasn't it?
I'll start then. No, it's not very good from a point of view of creativity of content, but it's good for their pockets because most YouTubers are either fully monetized and that's their full-time job, or at least partially monetized and they're trying to subsidize their income with it, or they're in that mode and they're actually behind the curve, to be honest with you. You know, like if you look at, there's a lot of sites on the internet that you type in, like best printer or best whatever you type in, and Google rankings are hit. First 10 are always every other major media outlet doing the top 10 best printers of 2024, and then you can find the 2023 one, the 2022 one, the 2021 one. It's because people are pretty basic quite often how they search for things, and it always comes up the rankings. So it's terrible for good quality content, but it's good for them from a monetization perspective, if I'm being direct.
Yeah, I'd agree with David. They are really easy to produce. You know, let's just say you're doing a 12-minute video, ballpark. You know, that's what most of us, well, back when I made videos, that's kind of what I aimed for. You got a minute or so of intro, a minute or so of outro. Then you want to cover a top 10, top 10 alternatives to whatever. So you got to talk about each watch for 45 seconds. Frankly, by the time you've done a little bit of patter, it's time to move on to the next one. And at the same time, in your search words and in everything. You get to list 10 different brands. You get to like pander to all of your audience. So if they don't like a Rolex, you get to say nice things about an Omega Seamaster as well. So now you're getting both people on board. If you're a really big media organization that has advertisers, you can make your advertisers happy by squeezing them in and making sure they're getting compared to the people that they would like to be compared to.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for the producer, they make enormous sense. And I think for the audience member, it's kind of like popcorn at the cinema. You can take it in, it's easy, it's inoffensive, and it, stops you thinking about death for 10 minutes.
Whoa. Nothing comes in the road of thinking about death. Let's just get that straight. I'm Scottish and Calvinistic.
Nothing gets in the way of that.
Nothing gets in the way of that. I think the other thing it does as well, sorry, Todd, I was going to say the other quick thing it does as well is it completely homogenizes and neutralizes any negativity, because you've got so little time to say anything of any value. Yeah. As you said, Pete, you cover everything, and it's just frankly banal at best.
I think the one redeeming factor though is that it's really good for the novice brand new guy who's like, I want to start collecting watches or whatever, because suddenly it opens my eyes to things I had never heard of, because all I've seen is watches at Walmart that are, weird versions of a G-Shock that aren't really G-Shocks. And to kind of get into this space and go like, oh, okay, now at least I can begin an investigation. But after a few years, you're like, yeah, I'm not watching that video anymore. I passed that. But yeah.
But see, even if they, and this is not aimed at anyone in particular, if they aimed it more at, let's do a beginner watches video and maybe do, like dress it up as a top 10 watches for beginners and watches, or, top 10 things that you look for when you start getting into watches, at least it gives it a little bit of depth and a little bit of understanding. But it's just like this flat line aimed at everybody, and it's just playing the algorithm, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that is the big thing, because that is the big thing with it. And I was chatting to a good friend of mine. I don't know if he wants. Perhaps I won't say his name, but he started filtering top 10 content in, and it is hugely boosted by the algorithm. And I think it's because when you're doing top 10, obviously, it's one of those videos. If I'm doing a review, you can sort of see the audience trail off, can't you? Like they like the start, but then getting a bit long-winded, so they switch off. Whereas a top 10, you have to hear all 10, don't you? Like a human kind of, most of the audience wants to hear the top 10. Also, you can filter in the product links as well. There's a product showcase, a carousel of products that you can add to videos. So if you can filter a top 10 list into that as well, you're really pleasing the YouTube masters, because you've got the carousel, you're doing a video that's got retention, and also it's you're essentially serving up a very quick content, almost TikTok style content, because as you mentioned, Dave, you're blasting through things in 45 seconds perhaps.
It's fast food. That's literally all it is. There's no depth that it fills you up for 10 seconds and then you're hungry again, and you still keep going back and consuming it. The sad thing is people are obviously consuming it, which is kind of like we're our own worst enemy. It's like everyone goes, well, it's a bit boring and a bit banal, but let's all watch it. And then of course that just feeds the machine at the end of the day. Whereas if folk just said, you know what, we're bored of this, let's not watch it, the algorithm and the narrative would change pretty quickly. Because let's be fair, what does YouTube want? Revenue. That's the only thing they're interested in.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's sorry.
I've got a feeling that what you get is there's a kind of a bow wave of people that come into watches. Those people tend to get very excited about the social media, and they're the ones that are constantly consuming a lot of media, the ones who are bouncing between channel and channel. And then they get sort of a bit tired and a bit more discriminating about what they watch, and they sort of tail off. And I think where top 10s fit in is they kind of surf that wave of the new people coming to the field. So as long as there's new people coming, then you know, someone who's just constantly doing top 10s will be fine because it's the first time, second time, third time those people have seen it. But, you know, it's 2 years down the track, you're desperately hoping new people have come to the arena because everyone else has seen what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean,
Also-
I typed in, just as an example, sorry, Todd, I typed in like top 10 affordable watches, and these ones are getting, I mean, this one here, 10 affordable watches from top tier tickers, 668,000 views. I haven't got a single upload that's ever done that. Andrew Morgan 4 months ago, 206, you know, 106 there. I mean, literally, this is 305 for top 10 cheapest watches that are unbelievable quality, top 10 cheapest watches that are actually worth buying. You know, even the same thumbnail there he's done, and between those nearly 700,000 views, which I haven't ever had a video that's even got 700,000 views. So
and like I said, they're definitely aimed at the new buyer. They're the, you know, top 10 cheapest watches, top 10 entry level watches, top 10, you know, cheap watches that even watch snobs will let you get a buy with. He's clearly got in mind. He hasn't got top 10, you know, Andrew Morgan is not going to do top 10 styles of guilloche.
Yeah.
I think the other thing it does, it feeds really well into that confirmation bias though too. Like,
Yeah.
oh, well, my watch was on that list. Now I feel better about my purchase. So there's a lot of that happening where you're looking for that, like, oh, I made a good choice.
Yeah. Which is why Teddy Baldassar has these top 62 micro brands
that he sells at his store.
Yeah. I mean, he's a master. Teddy did this and did it very, very well. I mean, he could be the greatest YouTuber that's ever been on this platform. So give him a pat on the back because he did this at the start, didn't he, to get going. But sorry, Dave.
I mean, I was going to say, you know, let's be honest though. Like I said at the start, these people, especially the big channel that are doing it, like Andrew and others, that is their primary business channel. You know, that's where their primary income streams come in. And it's like anyone in your job. If you're in a job and you suddenly realize, I actually now need to do this to earn my wage, or else I'm not earning as much money, most people will do what they have to do, and they'll change their narrative to suit it. And YouTube's not any different. The only difference with YouTube is when you work somewhere, at least you can usually have a face-to-face and a reasonable discussion, hopefully, with your boss. When YouTube's your boss, good luck.
Yeah. That is true. I mean, so Watches with Dennis said, humans like to compare and organize things. Top 10 lists are a shortcut to understanding complicated multivariable items. But so this is a question to the panel then. Are top 10 lists actually a good way of understanding watches, or is there so much of the YouTuber's personal bias? Go on, Dave.
Okay, let's remove the bias thing from it, which is always going to be there. The minute anybody doesn't do a peer-reviewed, you know, like fully academic study of these things, then it's always going to be fully, even when it's academic, it'll be biased as well. But because YouTube also favors short and fast, there's never enough time to give any information that gives any real meaningful, other than this is a nice one and it's quite nice because it's nice, but this is also quite nice because it's nice, and they're very similar, but choose the one you want. You know, if there was allowed to be half an hour long, then maybe you could create some content in a top 10 list that actually gave meaningful information that someone could sit down and go, okay, actually that's the one I like because of this. But it's almost like it's so short, it's so fast, it's so generic that what of value actually comes out of it? And this is not to degrade any of them that do the content. I understand why they do it, but it's just, for me, it's just it's white noise on the internet.
Yeah, I think at their best they can be useful, and I'll draw a really fine distinction between two words. They can be best in helping you know stuff, but they're never good at understanding stuff. So to Todd's point before, let's just say you do a video on top 10 German independent brands. That's an excellent way of getting across to people and playing with the way that people's brain works in exposing them to a brand that they know nothing, that they've never even heard of before. And that's a good thing. So from that point of view, it's not a bad thing. But in a minute and a half or a minute, can you understand what Tatima is, or can you understand, you know, Mueller Glasuta? No. So you can't understand anything. But they do have a place, and I don't think that we should burn all top 10s down. They do have a place in getting people kind of aware that there's something else out there, but they don't really help you understand anything.
No, I think you're right, Pete. I think I like the top 10 lists, and I'm gonna be doing more top 10 lists. So everybody subscribe if you want to see endless top 10 lists. But I think they're good for like doing top 10 watches you might not know, or like I just recorded one today, top 10 watch straps every collector should own. I think they're good.
Half
for,
of them are bracelets.
Half of them are
No, Mark. Metal straps.
Yep.
Mark.
metal straps, Mark.
It was. I didn't make that video, Sam.
That's not the way I remember it.
Unless you've gone back and edited it. No.
Is a Milanese a strap or a bracelet?
Oh, don't, let's. We've only got an hour.
Top 10 questions about Milanese bracelets. This is the strap.
Yeah, exactly. I think
your bum legs.
Yeah, I think those type of ones are interesting, aren't you? Because you're discovering new different things. But I think the top 10 affordable watches, or the worst when it's like, top 10 watches that get respect from snobs. I don't think I've ever met a watch snob. Do you know? Like, I mean, there's people that are just generally obnoxious, but like a lot of people who have like a lot of money and collect watches are actually the nicest people nicest collectors you'll ever meet, because they usually have a vast collection of watches and they just want to talk about them. So that whole watch snobs one is you see endless.
You clearly don't spend a lot of time around Facebook watch groups, because there are definitely a lot of watch snobs.
That is just Facebook, though, isn't it? I mean, these people are just like Facebook. It's like Twitter, isn't it? Like, I mean, these people are just obnoxious at their core, and they've just chosen today is like their battle is watches. I think.
I mean, watch collector groups are like any group in society. You've got all sorts of personalities. I think it's just that. Yeah. You'd learn to maybe not surround yourself or not associate with people that fall into that category more likely, but they're definitely out there, and there's a lot of them as well. There's as many people with a lot of money that are really down to earth, nice people that, I know a couple of people that are definitely in the 1% of the 1% when it comes to wealth, and they collect watches, but they don't collect anything that is intrinsically valuable in monetary terms. They've got a lot of stuff, whether it's vintage military watches or quartz this or quartz that, they're a few hundred, maybe at most a few thousand a piece. But these are the people, and they're very down to earth. But then there's also a lot of people who brand name stands higher than anything else. But that's like anything else in life, isn't it?
So are you doing a top 10 watches that billionaires wear to stay under the radar?
Well, I mean, the famous example was Steve Jobs. Yeah, there's a famous example for you. He wore pre-Apple Watch. He did actually wear a watch every day, and it was worth about $35.
It was a Casio, wasn't it, or a Seiko? I think you can still buy it. I think it was a Casio.
Yeah, it was a real basic entry level watch that told the time. Simple as that, and so that they are out there. So I think they were talking about, what's his name, head of Facebook. His name's
Mark Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg. He seems to have gone from low key. Off the radar dude to I've got more money than the rest of the world, almost except Elon Musk, and I'm going to buy very expensive watches and show them off now, and it seems to have popped up over the last 6 months.
He was very good, wasn't he? But now he's got Patex and all sorts, and a yacht.
Well, maybe it's just about brain space. Like for a long time, he was, all his brain space was going into Meta and Facebook and whatever, and now he's backing off and saying, where is that attention going? Well, it's going to Patex and whatever. Whereas you get some, I think quite often it's just about what are you prepared to invest your time in. Steve Jobs had things he was prepared to invest his time in and things he wasn't.
Yeah, and unfortunately, his health that's what it says in the book, wasn't it? That his health wasn't a priority towards the end, unfortunately. But yeah, so Do we think that, like, so Pete, you made a great point. Not the 1 point you made before the show. The other point that you made.
Can I come out with that one?
Show about BuzzFeed, and you were right. Like you were saying, the history of it is women's magazines, and then you mentioned BuzzFeed, but BuzzFeed went bust, didn't it? Like in the end.
And I think that's the risk you run. If you're a channel that becomes known as effectively an AI channel fronted by someone a little bit personable, and you're just wanting to surf that wave, BuzzFeed is your cautionary tale and says, this is what could happen to me. I could become a joke.
Well, that has a lot to do with a company called Geo Media, I think, who went around buying all these declining sites and then cutting the cost so ruthlessly that there's not a lot else you can do. Some of the targets for BuzzFeed, how many listicles can you produce in a week type targets, because there's nobody left, because there was no value in what they were doing before.
Yeah. I mean, I think in an earlier discussion, we'll be cautious about mentioning other people, but in specific people. In an earlier discussion, Sam, you were showing us like a YouTuber who has done a number of top 10s, and if you put them next to each other, some of them were effectively the same video with effectively even the same thumbnail, just reproduced a few months apart, and you find yourself thinking, surely that has a lifespan.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to I spoke to a YouTube consultant. He messaged me, and I was chatting to him. I think it started off about watches, and he was like, "Oh, I'm a full-time YouTube consultant." So I said to him, like, "What's the formula to YouTube nowadays?" And he says the formula is make the same piece of content 5 times, different thumb. The structure of the content is exactly the same. And these top 10 lists are make the same piece of content, similar thumbnails, and then just that's what you do. The same piece of content 5 times over and over and over again. You just slightly tweak it. So this is how top 10 lists feed so nicely into that, isn't it? It's like top 10 affordable watches, top 10 watches under $100, top 10 watches anyone can buy, top 10 cheap watches that even watch experts appreciate. Top 10 watches that from that you can buy in Walmart. They're all actually the same video. There are top 10 affordable watches, but just with slightly different titles, and obviously would be a few different picks in amongst them. So I just gave away my next 5 weeks worth of videos there.
It's surprising that works, and it must be because YouTube is pushing it the hardest, because as a consumer, with so much, when I'm trying to find something to watch on YouTube lately, I've been like, there's nothing I want to watch. I've seen all of these things a million times. When it looks so reductive, you're just like, I'm not watching that right now. I'm surprised it works.
But go back in time, Todd, young Todd that's just got into the game, and ask yourself that question again. And no, you would have watched all of them.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? I mean, I wonder if there is a place for doing more top 10s that do you know, actually watch Addicts. This is before I go off on a tangent. Watch Addicts. This is a great point. I generally hope the next evolution of YouTube videos is interviews with designers, makers. For example, interviews with Christopher Ward that CWR does on release day. Truly unique perspective and discussion. I mean, I totally agree with that. No, but I think I enjoy making that content because I think it is educational. But I think the more, come on, Dave.
I think that falls into the same category as newspaper and editorial work, or magazines and actually proper long form written editorial work. There is a small number of people that I still like to buy printed things with good, well thought, well researched articles, but they're actually really difficult to find now, because sadly it would appear that a huge swathe of the bigger audience, not the specialist niche audience, and let's be honest, like this panel, most of the people in the comments, it's super niche of a niche. They just want easily consumable, fast, disposable content, and that's it's catering to the masses, and unfortunately that's the problem. I agree wholeheartedly, by the way. The more long form stuff, I only use YouTube to watch weird stuff that I can't find anywhere else, and on average it's probably at least 30 minutes long, the stuff I watch, minimum. In fact, I've downloaded something that's in an hour and 45 minutes to watch some random film from 1934 that you can't get anywhere else about. They wanted to build a tunnel between Europe and America, and it was made in 1934. It's things like that I like, but it's just, most people don't. They want fast, furious, boom, eat it, forget you ate it, feel that you're full up, blah, fast food.
Yeah,
I think the Christopher Ward interviews that they do, they remind me of the articles you used to get, the Sunday Times magazine type articles that, it would be in that glossy section of the Sunday Times or whichever Sunday broadsheet you had. And yes, it's informative, but everybody knows the subtext is it's marketing too. But if it has the content and it's interesting, people will read it. And I think, Christopher Ward doing that, I think they've hit on something. I suspect that there's not a lot, you would only ever watch one. So, you're always going to watch Sam's interview with Will Brackfield because you know that all the answers are going to be the same for the 10 YouTubers that get that interview. But you pick your favorite star, but they still have merit.
Yeah, actually, somebody booking the trend, Junior Johnson, made an excellent point. Somebody, this watches of espionage, I think, started off on Instagram, and he was doing long posts. Then he did a newsletter, didn't he? So he's going old school with the newsletter, and that was really informative. And then he started doing a YouTube channel. I don't know if it's him hosting it. I've oft asked him multiple times whether he'll come on the channel, but he just says, due to his previous career and stuff like that, he doesn't, he doesn't want to be on video.
Same as Chris Hall in the UK, who does the fourth wheel. Same thing.
Yeah,
he's worked in journalism for a long time, and the discussion with him was he said he just was getting slowly tired of having to produce less informative, shorter, less in depth, less value content because that's what they want, or more content that was heavily narrated by the advertiser, etc., etc. And he's like, back to let's do long form, once a week written article on a kind of, it's almost like an old school bulletin board, like these kind of like journals. That's like the early days of the internet. That's before it kind of, that was when it was actually interesting. It was still a pain in the proverbial because you had to use a dial-up connection, and usually halfway through reading it disconnected because your mum wanted the phone. But that's dated me badly probably. But
no, I remember it.
It'll
be a therapy session for Dave.
Dated all of us, Dave. Not just
but interestingly, I think there is a little vein of that coming back. Unfortunately, it's not in the mainstream. It's not on YouTube. It's not really on Instagram. It's beginning to come through. I know probably 4 or 5 people that have over the last maybe year or so started doing these, don't know what to call it, blog posts or journals.
Newsletters.
Yeah, that kind of vibe. But they've got, there's these online publishing. It's like self-published online portals that you can publish. And actually, weirdly, nearly all of them are behind a paywall. You can get a glimpse of stuff, or you get an occasional one. And they seem to be gaining a bit of traction. It would seem that there are people again saying, do you know what? I want the good content, and I understand the only way I get it is I have to put my hand in my pocket, even a little bit, to allow that person to have enough to spend the time to create that content.
I do wonder if individual contributors can make a living like that, whereas a big company can't. A large newspaper with all the overhead,
or like Condé
can struggle behind a paywall for long form content, even if they know there's demand for it, because the demand that there isn't enough to run a big organization. But if you're an individual contributor like Chris Hall, yes, it's a very valid way of being your own business.
Yeah, it's about, I think, value, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Dave. I would say 95% of my watch media these days comes from Substack newsletters. People like Chris Hall, King Flum, Screw Down Crown, those sorts of guys. And it's not uncommon to, the other day, someone did a video on someone wrote an article. So you actually had to like read 10,000 words on the precise manufacturing methods for doing guilloche and how Atelier Wen manages to do that at a bargain basement price. How they've modified the machine so that you can train someone to do one specific activity. It's fascinating for 1% of people, but since I'm prepared to pay a couple of bucks to belong to Screw Down Crown, I'll learn it.
Maybe there's room for a top 10 Substack watch newsletters.
Yes.
No, there isn't, because I don't think there's 10 good ones.
Okay.
It's an emerging field.
Is there 10 bad ones?
If Dave's got any other recommendations, I'm up to about 4. I can't find anyone else past that. It's really worth.
Yeah, you're right. I'd struggle to find 10, but there's 7 or 8, I think, in total that are reasonable. But I think it's a growing trend, though. 2, 3 years ago, there were none. You know,
And
like King Flum, like Fahim. You know, I know Fahim well. Is a good example. He's a watch guy. He's actually not materially different to any of us or pretty much anyone else in the comments. He's a watch guy. He doesn't work in watches. He's into watches. He's collect watches. He goes to Red Bar events, blah, blah, blah. And he just got fed up of like, there's no content that I actually want to consume myself. And probably that means there's other people feel the same. And he's from South Africa, so he's not shy about being forward. So he's like, well, I'll do it myself then, you know. And he says it gives him a place to vent his frustrations and his thoughts and everything else in a long form format. And he's got enough that people, you know, want it, because they would die out if nobody paid and no one read it. They wouldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully.
Yeah, we've got some good kind of comments here coming from the chat here. Somebody, so Bella Brandy said, "Are any of you guys familiar with Dan Spitz, master watchmaker and former Methodist guitarist, whose entire movement from titanium very unique escapement?"
It's extremely cool.
Oh yeah, we'll have to check that one out. And then Watchhike says, "Unfortunately, YouTube is a platform for the casuals. Enthusiasts always move on to more in-depth platforms like blogs, forums, etc." I don't know if that's especially
forums are like
forums are a cesspit.
Cesspit. That's the good ones are a cesspit.
Yeah, the good ones are merely a cesspit. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm really old. I was burnt by camera forums back in the day, and I just won't touch them with a barge pole.
Are you referring to the DP review Canon Nikon flame wars? Oh man. Yeah. Oh, happy days.
Oh man, what a toxic environment.
Most forums turned into like literally junior high school playground where every day someone was the pick of the bullies, and like they would just be a pile on. It was like non-stop, and it just went round in a circle, and it was so bad. And I've not been on them long enough recently to know whether they've changed much, but I'm doubting, because the keyboard warriors are still out there.
Yeah. Again, it's in exactly the same way that I think forums have made a bit of a comeback, but the best forums are also behind paywalls. There are a lot of magazines, for example, a lot of podcasts have got Discord servers, and you have to like pay something often quite nominal to get on the server.
Yeah,
and then there's a couple of Discord servers I'm like part of where the journalists are incredibly open and frank. They'll routinely, say this article was made this way because someone paid me to make it this way. This is what it has to be.
I think a lot of that's for 2 reasons, though, Pete. One is exactly what you say. The minute you put it behind a paywall, it's safe because it's not on the open internet per se in the way that other stuff is. So they feel a little bit more secure being able to do that. But also it gives them, they're less vitriolic usually, because to actually get onto it, you have to pay. So they actually know who their users are, as opposed to an open forum where you can literally be that keyboard bully because nobody knows who you are.
That's absolutely right. There's a sense of you're behind a paywall, so there's a bit of safety, but also you've selected your audience. You're talking to you're speaking to your crowd.
Yeah. Exactly.
So Mark says, I make my living by publishing a subscription newsletter in my field of business. Clients send me money every month. Done it for over 15 years now. Low overhead is a key factor.
Yeah.
That's
and I think if you, but it, that's exactly the case. You have to put a bit of thought into it. You have to curate your content. You have to think it through and work out what's the balance of. You don't need as many people as you think to make that work. If you get the balance between the number of people, how much they're paying, and the quality of the content, you don't need the YouTube. I need 1 million people to watch something to earn a reasonable amount of money. And at least then you're the boss of yourself. Whereas with YouTube, as we know, today is not tomorrow and it's not the day after. Whatever they want is what they get.
Yeah. Paul's asked, which country do you feel has the best micro brand watches? Unfortunately, Paul, you haven't named 10, so we can't really answer that. So,
Dino, what happened to you? You've suddenly become. You were back in the UK for a short while, weren't you, Sam?
I know.
I can tell.
Yeah, actually, Watch Addict. Watch Addict answered the question, Paul. I mean, we're just joking because we're doing top 10 lists. Yeah, it is an interesting direction. I'm gonna do this experiment in real life. I made a list. I was in the green room before. I've made a list just within the space of a 1 hour journey of at least 25 possible top 10 lists that I could easily do, probably without putting too much, like you said, probably putting too much effort into it. In fact, I think the problem is going to be me actually not making them too long.
I was going to say, has YouTube started paying people in pieces of silver? Do you get like 30 for this new strategy?
Wow.
We went hard.
My boy.
This is the problem. It's funny because we're next week we are very lucky, and I'll mention it now, so it'll look shady if he doesn't join. But Mark at Long Island Watches is going to join us next week because he made a video about pay for play. About YouTubers wanting watches in exchange for review, and my comment on it, and obviously we can discuss a little bit now, but we'll definitely talk to Mark next week about it. Was I don't think that watch YouTuber now, I don't think they could actually really say that this is a hobby because the investment in gear and like the constant having to feed the algorithm to do anything with watches on YouTube and to get recognized and to actually have a following, whether you want to make money from it or not, is not really a cash. It can't be treated as a casual endeavor anymore, which I would think as a hobby is you're learning, you do it because you enjoy it. Now I feel like I'm constantly feeding a beast that is never satisfied. There's an episode of The Twilight Zone that's like that.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, I mean, there's two sides of that. I mean, it could still be a hobby if I'm not worried about, if I'm not doing it to make money, and if I'm not doing it to feed an algorithm. You could do it just to do it. A million people put up videos of just their cat, eating whatever, and people, they fill YouTube with all that kind of garbage. So you could, but if you're trying to rise above, and if you are trying to get the views, and if you're trying to make something out of it, then you can't.
I think
the
it's also,
validation.
Sam, I was going to say, I think it's Sam. What you're mentioning there is more the rationalization or validation of the fact that you've spent an exorbitant amount of money on microphones and equipment. But then, if you have a true hobby, is the nature of a lot of hobbies, not all of them, but a lot of hobbies, is that you spend a really disproportionate amount of money, time, brain power doing something that has absolutely no relevance to anything other than you do it for the sake of doing it because you like doing it.
Right.
So, ultimately, we all collect watches. Let's take it back to base. We all collect watches, whether we collect 10 watches, 5 watches, 1,000 watches, whatever. We've all spent too much money on things that we don't need because we like them. And, nobody then goes, but someone now needs to pay me to do what I want as a hobby.
No, I know.
That's very different. That's very. On you go. You counter.
Yeah. So I'll counter it with there is you're right. I still consider this a hobby of sorts, and I started off as a hobby. There is a scene from Monty Python, The Life of Brian, where he's running from the Romans and he enters into a market. And I don't know if you remember the thing, and he wants to buy a false beard to disguise himself. And they're like, oh, it's 10, it's 10 for this beard. And he's like, oh no, I only have 5. And he's like, okay, well, I'll throw in this gourd. And he's like, well, how about I give you 5 for this and then 2 for the gourd or whatever it is. Like, well, this gourd's worth more than 2. Like, and he's like, well, you were going to give it me for free. That's what YouTube is. YouTube is like, hey, do this. Hey, do you want to be monetized? Okay, well, now you're monetized. Oh, that 8 hours work, that's worth 25 cents. And you're like, well, I was fine doing it for free as a hobby, but now you've put like a price on it. Now I feel like,
Let's be straight. YouTube have a lot of people on their staff that may or may not have very sophisticated degrees in psychology, and they are a digital drug dealer, and that's for both the consumer and the creator. Both of them, they've got both of them on their tab, and it's like ultimately you can't deny clever business model. Yeah. Put a bit of effort in, put a bit of investment in, and literally sit there and say to yourself, right, we need folk to make content so that we don't have to create content, because as we know, TV and film is quite expensive. Like how many Netflix get themselves in trouble, film studios get themselves in trouble, and then they go, all right, we'll get other people to do all the hard work and pay for that. These idiots that are going to consume it, yeah. So if we don't want adverts, they can pay us to not have adverts, but also if we convince them to do that for this much little money, it's a perfect business model, but they've got everyone hooked on. And it's because they have very clever people that know exactly how people react. And it was said earlier, human nature, humans like lists, humans like organization. Humans are, easily manipulated.
Yes.
Oh yeah, and I'm not blind to that fact at all. I mean, I'm well. I mean,
clearly not. That's what the top 10s are for.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You wait. I'm in too deep now. I've kind of gone past the point of no return. Like
Sam, I've just checked my diary. I've got an appointment on Wednesday. You're welcome into the consulting rooms.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, what a gentleman called Thomas who's on Watch Crunch recognized me in the supermarket the other day. So now I feel famous. Now I feel like I have to keep going.
He's got a Is he addicted now? He's jonesing for that next fix.
I'm addicted to the fame. I'll just be on with sunglasses next time and
Actually, that is also, we were talking before about the money, but I think that idea of success is at least as big for most YouTubers. It's like this sense of, I remember when I did my first one and, I thought literally no one would watch. And then when 10 people watched it and I thought, you get that little buzz of 10 people cared about what I thought. I think that's often as big, particularly for the hobbyist style, that's as big a buzz for the YouTuber as the actual money. The money, as you say, is not life-changing.
No,
it's for your average hobbyist. It's maybe tops out at $1,000 US a month. The big businesses make more, but that's probably what the hobby type people are topping out at. But the idea that there's 100,000 people watching my video is a bit of a turn on for a lot of people, and so you end up chasing
people's. It's ego, a lot of it's ego. But then, the other point I would bring up is for some people, especially the ones who really do court it, it's a lifestyle.
Yes.
Right. It's more than income. It's a lifestyle. So I will name and I will give a specific example because this individual put it on their open social media on Instagram. So I will say it verbatim, but Tim Wright, many people will know Tim Wright's channel, creates a whole load of content, seems to love doing it. He seems to pop up everywhere though. Like globally, he pops up. Like I was in New York with work and he popped up. Watch Pro was on just the weekend there, the Friday, Saturday. And I actually was walking through the venue of all the things to go to the toilet. And I was like, Tim's here. He was in New York last week. So I don't know whether Tim does or doesn't have other job, whatever. No idea.
No, he does that full time. He does it full time.
So he does it full time. Now, this is what he wrote. And this I think is pretty interesting. This is what he wrote on his Watch Pro post. And I'm going to read it verbatim so that I don't get accused of saying anything he didn't. It says, Incredible time at Watch Pro Salon 2024, and a huge shout out to the UK watch community for helping me get through tough times. Really appreciate all that came to the show to say hello to me and join me for dinner and cigars. Also, thanks to all that helped me financially get through the event and help me get home. Love you all. See you next year.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's in one sense, I said to myself, is he just been really open and kind of transparent and honest? But at the same time, it's like, to say thanks who got me through financially, he's basically going, you see it as I need money to get me to still do what I want to do. I can't decide where it is, but I thought it was quite an interesting thing to put up for someone in that narrative.
There's a whole corner of the internet of every internet, but it's certainly of the watch internet that goes that way. I mean, Archie probably started it, I think, but there's
he definitely played that game.
Yeah, and so there's this community of like super chats and help me get here and help me get there, and they, not surprisingly, you have to generate. You want long form content, he'll do you a 4-hour video. It's all crap, but it's 4 hours of drama and he said, she said, this, that, and if people paying, coming back to this idea of people wanting to be seen, someone will pay you, in some cases, $100 just to read their comment.
Yeah, I personally, and this is anyone who operates in that style. So Archery was a famous example. He'd gone and rant and rave and like basically tell folk pretty directly, give me money. It's I call it digital begging.
Begging, yeah.
It's just digital begging, and it's strange because in any other aspect of life, if someone is begging and comes up to you, generally you ignore, you walk past, you kind of there's a degree of disdain about it, but it seems to be relatively accepted digitally, which I've never quite put out because there's no material distinction for me. It's very similar narrative.
You nailed it on the head. I was feeling like that as you read that. It felt a little like distasteful.
It's like someone coming up in the street and saying,
"Yeah,
can I have some money?"
Yeah.
It's that live stream community, and I've definitely done live streams with Tim. I met him in real life.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy, but I think a lot of those channels spun up with the Timepiece Gentleman drama, and at that time, if you remember, you only had to put that in the title, and then they built up a drama. But unfortunately, now it's like the I won't go into politics, but it's like the US election. Like there's a lot of drama, but actually most of the time it's quite boring. So most of the day-to-day operations of like the watch community, there isn't like new dramas popping up. So it's almost like this. It's like a machine that has to self-populate. It's like these like a TMZ or those other like the drama kind of websites where they almost have to create the drama themselves in order to build up the kind of. I guess it's the same with a lot of YouTube. So it's
well, a lot of it is like the drama is between the drama channels, and each drama channel has their team. So are you team Tim Wright, or are you team O'Sheen, are you team Archie, and then they critique each other, and I think a lot of people would see, you talk about e-begging, which it kind of does feel like, but on another hand, some people see it as they kind of seem to approach it as I'm supporting my team.
Yes.
It's like a membership to a sports
tribal
club.
Yeah, but I think there's also a different narrative of having a facility or whatever that allows people to donate to your channel or decide to do that versus outright in public going, thanks very much, give me money. I think that there's a real distinction there. Certainly in that's like, so the difference between tipping somebody for good service when you go out for dinner,
yes,
or someone walking up and going, give me £10 because I still
I can
want
go
to
do what I like
about
to do.
Watches. Correct. Yeah. I think they're intrinsically the same. Somebody's giving someone else money, but they're very different in narrative.
It's the same with your paid newsletter, isn't it? Like your I posted that was an excellent podcast you and Ricky did for the fourth wheel. But he can charge.
The comments are fire right now, by the way.
Yeah,
honestly, they are on fire.
They're distracting me.
They're absolutely epic, and I've got to say, Watches with Dennis.
He's killing me.
Made my weekend.
Yeah, it's funny. It's yeah. There was a comment actually. So this I'll just read out this. So this Noctura Watch Corp says Mark made a lot of valid points. Yeah, so already he's off to a bad start there. However, so it says, however, as a small and very new watch brand on the market like myself, I had to offer free watch. I had to watch his watches for free to get some reviewers interested. I won't go on a soapbox about this, but just to point out, you're not actually offering the watch for free. You are offering a watch in exchange to reach that reviewer's audience, because you could actually do this yourself. You could put the cameras on. You could do Instagram posts on your own. It's that we've spent so many years like grinding through this to build up an audience that's why. You know, so I mean, wish you luck with your watch brand, but
I agree.
I
agree, Sam. Ultimately, you know, like there's a lot of brands that will reach out and they know that they can't necessarily get the attention of the big players,
or they're not willing
media market. Well, not even that. They can't. They either, you know, I think there's perfectly valid reasons they maybe can't afford the rates that these people charge, because most of the big ones, they will heavily tie in. We will give you editorial coverage as long as you've taken out some form of advertising deal or whatever with us this year, because those guys have to make money and that's how they play the game. And then there's the kind of channels that, like yourself and lots of others, that are in under that level, but they're producing really good quality content and they've got themselves a bit of an audience. It might not be billions or millions of people, but it's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and that is all born out of their hard work. So they're maybe not in a place that they can say, well, I'll do a watch review for you, but you need to pay me 10 grand, but the watch is the payment in lieu.
Yeah, and I've never asked for money for a review, and I do a lot of pro bono ones as well, but it literally get inundated like every day. I mean, Pete will be the same. 3 or 4 emails a day is people asking for you to review their watches. And the thing is, I think the distinction that I make is that some brands do very well. If I'm being asked to be the sole voice of the brand to the audience, that's when it never works in views for me. Only Jody can do that, quite honestly. But I will do it sort of like, you know, if I'm part of a marketing machine that happens, like Christopher Ward, like launch day. You know, Christopher Ward sent me one watch for free in all of the years, and I never asked him for it. But do you know what I mean? Like, you're part of a machine. You're a piece of the puzzle, not like the sole voice of the brand, which is usually where.
And there was an interesting comment a couple of years ago from Christopher Ward as it happened, and they were saying when they pulled in their new head of marketing, who came from one of the big newspapers in the UK, and she had to get used to the idea that maybe 80% of the people they were dealing with were amateurs and not professional journalists, and they needed to be handled in a different way. The needs were different. So that if you're looking for YouTube or for written content, most of the time people are just doing it for fun because they like the product or they like the hobby, rather than if you want the big coverage. By the way, you're dealing with, you know, essentially what have become professional media organizations, even if they were hobbies to start with.
Yeah, you know, and you get both sides of the tail as well, though. Just to be fair, I guess to the brands to some extent, is that brands get emails regularly as well. Hey, I've got a YouTube channel. Send me watches to review.
Yeah, 100%.
And you look, and they've got 10 viewers, and you're like, you want me to send you 2 10 grand watches to a random guy on the internet to review? And at the same time, you think, well, they have to start somewhere. You know, so you get it from that side. Then you move into a territory where you get a lot of channels that are like reviewing watches that they like. They maybe own the watch themselves. They maybe just review something that they think will get them a bit of viewership because they like that watch. And they're also doing some paid reviews, and by paid it could be money, it could be a watch, it could be a trip to a location, it could be anything like that. There's always going to be a mix of that. It's never changed though. That's not any different. YouTube's not any different to how it used to work in the past with small magazines, big magazines. You know, the really startup magazines used to write, and I got them in the cycling industry all the time. We're starting a magazine. Would you please send us some stuff to review? Then at the opposite end, it was like, if you want us to do a review, you better get your hand in your pocket for a lot of advertising. And the folk in the middle, which was, well, I know you won't pay me money, but will you give me free kit, or will you sponsor me, or will you do this, or will you do that? So it's never changed.
Yeah.
It's just
I've never reached out to a brand and asked them to send me a watch for free, and I actually very rarely reach out to brands anyway. But I will, if it's a brand that I definitely want to review, I always say, hey, do you have a press sample? I'll need it for 2 weeks. I like this particular thing about the brand, so I never. It's like, I mean, you know, Chris. I never asked Christopher Ward for anything. I'm passionate about the brand. In fact, I had a watch this week that I thought I was going to send back, that Venzianico, an incredible watch, and in the end they were like, "No, we'd like you to keep it." And I'm like, "Are you guys sure?" Because you know, it's you know, it was a $1,000 watch. Very, very.
I mean, I think it's the thing that always makes me laugh though is, you know, when folk say, "Oh, you know, they're just shilling that," you know, let's just take like Sam, for example. Oh, you're just shilling that because they let you keep that watch, right? And you're like, what about the other stuff that has physically been paid in cold hard cash? How's that any different? You know, it's just, unfortunately, that's just the way the world works.
Yeah, it's an easy. I think often that response is when there's something about the video they didn't really like, but they don't want to take you on the merits of what you've said. They don't think that they can challenge you on what you actually said with a constructive argument against it. So they just go to the kind of lowest sometimes.
Exactly. And I think, you know, I know a couple of, let's just say, one of the very big YouTube watch channels, the very big ones. And I remember having a discussion with this individual and saying, what tack do you take when brands approach you to say, we'd like you to review your watch and we're willing to pay you to review the watch? And he says, I do. He says, I'm in a lucky position, but I'm quite simple. He says, if I really don't like the watch or I really don't like the product, I'll say to them, I really don't like your product. If you want to pay me to review it, I'll do it, but you will not like what I'm going to write about it because I've got a bond with my audience that is based on them trusting what I say. So he's open with the brands, but he'd rather refuse that than have to cow to write something. So he said, I've had brands in the past that have made the mistake of going, yeah, we'll still pay you. Don't worry, you can write what you want. And he did. And they were like, how dare you write that? And he's like, well, I did tell you.
I sent a watch back the other day, but you hear that this is, you hear often tales in the watch industry, don't you? But I think the car scene is brutal for that, isn't it? If you like some certain car brands.
Yeah, you have to become so infamous, a la Top Gear in its heyday, where you could literally slam a car, but the brand can't actually afford to not send you cars to get reviewed because you've got such, you know. But that's the rarity. But yeah, you were right. You know, there's been, Ferrari are famous for it. Say something bad, good luck ever getting any contact from them again.
Yeah. Pete, we're being asked in the chat, when are you making your comeback? Top 10 list.
Yeah, that's list.
Come on.
Top 10 recent.
We talked about death at the start. That's probably higher up the rankings.
Yeah. Probably maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. I've got a list of things I want to talk about, but
do it.
Probably the one that I'm thinking I'm most going to do now is I can't think of 10, but I'll do a list.
I'll send you some.
I'll join you. I'll join you. I'll do a list. 3 watches I'd buy if only someone else made them.
Yeah, I think that is a good one for you. I think that is a really good one for you. Yeah.
What you were talking about earlier, I'd love to see you cover that.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. 10 watches I like. Was it? You said 3, but you've got to do like at least, I think 5, haven't you? 5 to 10. 5 watches I'd buy if they were made by other brands.
Yeah.
So top 10 YouTubers that come out of retirement.
top 10 watch YouTubers who need to go into retirement. Get the knives out.
Oh, really? Stick the knife, yeah, really stick the
Actually,
knives out.
Or
Brilliant.
we could go with
Don't
the
forget-
top 10 watch brands that should stop making watches.
Yeah, you could do that. Or, the 10 brands that we wouldn't notice if they stopped making watches.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good one. You get my vote for that one.
Yeah, we need to set up a kind of like a new channel, an anonymous channel for that one, because that's.
I was going to say that's a WhatsApp group all on its own, dude. or a Discord server all on its own.
Protected group as well.
Yeah, you could be like the Stig version of a watch reviewer. Just muffle your voice and then just do like an AI generated.
There was someone who was doing that, I think, a couple of years ago. There was a channel that was like totally anonymous, and they did some fairly high production stuff, but they vanished. They only did about 5 videos.
Oh, really? I know there's that guy that dressed up as Archie, didn't he? And used to do a spoof of like YouTubers. I forgot what his name was. Do you remember? He did he dressed up as TGV as well and stuff.
Oh, yeah, I do remember him.
And it's like on Instagram, Horological Dictionary. She has managed to keep themselves relatively off the radar in terms of people who know who they actually are, but they are not exactly shy about being forward.
Yeah, but I think that the trouble with an idea like that is, again, you have this idea of what are you trying to do? Are you actually trying to say the top 10 brands that no one would notice? Or on the other hand, are you, and this is where somewhere like a Horological Dictionary makes no bones about it. They're just having fun. They're trying to make a funny meme. So is what they say true? 9 times out of 10, no, but it's funny. It's like or is it deeply based in the truth and no one wants to admit it? Yeah, I see memes are kind of like cosmetic advertising. Cosmetics advertising is allowed to say whatever it says because people know that it's fantasy. People know it's not true. It's nuanced language, Pete, like we've been talking about, maybe in the chat as well. But, it's be careful what words you use in beauty. As long as nothing could actually be definitively proven or not proven, then you're all good.
And believe it or not, if you're making claims in the cosmetics business, you do have to have evidence to support the claim. I know that. There was a case in Australia once when I was studying law about someone who said, use this cream and it will take 20 years off your life. And they got sued for it. And then the court said, no one with a brain would believe that. That is clearly a fantastical claim. If you were suckered into that, that's on you. The perfect defense for that would be that would probably not fly in the US though, Pete.
No, never fly.
It wouldn't fly in the US legal system.
No, Pete. The defense for that is it will take 20 years off your life if you consume it.
Or you put a little asterisk at the bottom, or it could kill you.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, guys, that was such an amazing, lively conversation. The chat was going wild. Thanks to everyone that commented.
Well done, chat.
Shout out to everyone that joined. Thanks for
remember, chat. Donate. We're all poor. We need to go on trips.
Yes.
Money in. Money in. We need to pay for a ticket for Pete to get to Europe.
I want to be able to go to Red Bar and meet Dave. I need money.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, a big thanks to everyone for watching. A big thanks to the panel, and we'll see you all next time on Casual Watch Talk Sunday. So
don't forget to upvote.
Take it easy.